Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Go With Your Gut. I am Lauren Dreyer, your host, and today we are talking about when you know it's time for change, because I've talked to a lot of people recently, and myself included, that's been a very common theme. And I've come to find that a lot of people mistake other things for knowing when it's time for change. Now, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, where you are or what you're doing. You can feel like it's time for change and mistake it for something else in a lot of different ways. If it's maybe time to move to a new place, you're comfortable, but you're feeling a little stagnant, stale, maybe feeling like you're in a rut. Sometimes I think that can tell us that it's time to make a big change, or not even a big change, just a change in general. So, the couple people that I've talked to recently about it being time for change in their life, um, they weren't necessarily unhappy with where they were, but there was a sense of, I can do this, but I'm ready for more. I'm ready for something different. I'm ready to make myself grow. And there gets to be a sense of frustration because I think we get such in our comfort zone, and we don't realize that it's time to expand those skills. It's time to do new things. It's time to, um, I don't know, change whatever you're doing, move on, and find yourself in your new challenge, whatever that looks like for you. So for me, it's always been kind of this, I always related it to stress because I always felt kind of a squeeze, like I couldn't quite take a deep breath. And yes, I do the same thing when I get stressed, but I wasn't stressed. I was in a place where I'm like, okay, because I know I'm not stressed, what is this doing to me? Why do I have this feeling? And I'd been talking about it to so many other people that I didn't even reflect that back on myself. So I'm like, well, okay, yeah, I'm talking to them about it, but I'm good to go where I am. I'm doing good. And then once they kind of went on their own path, I came back and said, okay, that feeling is still there. It was really fun for me to be able to talk them through it, but now that feeling is still there. So what do I need to do? What do I need to change? And so what do I do when I need to work something out or I need to figure something out? You got it. I went to my journal and started asking myself the questions that I was asking those other people of what why do we think I'm short of breath? Am I stressed? Am I ready for something else? Am I scared about something? And started digging into those. And I started answering myself. After I'd write it, I would write out the answer. And I discovered that I was like, okay, I think I'm at the point where I'm comfortable here. I've been doing this and I've stretched a lot where I am, but I'm comfortable. And for me, I used to sit and get nice and comfortable in that zone. But in the last couple of years, I have learned that yes, it's nice to be in the comfort zone, but I get to the point where I'm like, okay, what's next? And I didn't realize that I thought that. I was just kind of like, okay, why am I all of a sudden feeling like I'm in a rut? Because it's time for change. It's time for me to keep expanding. It's time for new goals and uh new new things, really. And so what did I have to do for myself? Is the first time I've ever actually been able to do this by myself, and somebody else hasn't really had to help me with it. Is I thought, okay, so what does this new thing look like? Because I've always been a person who is, I know where I want to go. I don't have any idea how to get there. And the steps to get there, I was always really freaked out by the fact that I didn't know what those steps looked like. And it overwhelmed me so much that I just shut down and stayed in that comfort zone instead of going somewhere and saying, okay, what do you think this looks like? You've been here before, which a lot of times that's a mentor, but I went and said, okay, I think I'm ready for this. I don't know what it looks like, but I can feel that I'm comfortable where I am. So, um, who do I need to talk to about what this could look like so that I can have that bigger picture? Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what comes to my mind based on what I know, because we only know what we know. You can't figure out what you don't know. You need to go to somebody and ask them, what do you think this looks like? Um, and that was a tough conversation, not because I didn't want to have it, but because for me in my gut, I knew that that meant leaving the comfort zone. I knew that that meant stepping towards that fear, because you better believe the entire time in my head, I'm thinking, Lauren, what if this doesn't work out? What if they don't tell you what you want to hear? What if this looks a lot harder than what you're thinking in your head right now? You're leaving the comfort of the support and the safety net and the consistency that you have right now. And I thought, yeah, I am. But when have I ever thrived and done good? Consistency is good. But I have figured out for myself that when I stay in that comfort zone, when I don't push myself, when I don't have a goal or a bigger picture right now um, that makes me nervous, excited, terrified at the same time, I'm not excited enough to do the hard things that it means to get you there. I have been told by multiple people before. I've listened to a lot of people, and it took a lot of time for this to actually take a root in whatever, my brain, my system, I don't know, whatever it is. But I've always heard that if your goals and the bigger picture of where you want to go, where that next big step is, if that doesn't make you nervous, terrify you, and make you really excited, it's not big enough. If that means going for another huge promotion, if that means moving somewhere, if it means uh, making a huge change, whatever that looks like, if it means moving to a whole new place where you know nobody and that scares the crap out of you because maybe you're a huge introvert, or maybe you just really like that comfort zone and you hate change. You're not alone. But if those big dreams, those big goals, those big aspirations don't scare the crap out of you, um, give you the butterflies, and your brain doesn't start going, no, danger, don't do this. You don't know how it's going to work out. This could not work out. You may fail. And I used to get completely paralyzed, shut down, and say, yep, you're right. Too big. Can't do it. But now, the minute I started working through this and talking through this, the minute I started to do those things, and literally it happened as I was writing it down. Okay, this is what it would look like. This is what it would look like. I need to have a conversation with these two people, and maybe they can have answers that I don't know about. Maybe we can talk about what new processes this could bring. And you get to that point where it's you're doing that and painting that picture, mental picture of what that's going to look like. And the more you do that and answer those questions for yourself, you start to allow yourself to dream. You start saying, okay, yeah, it is. It's time for change. It's time for me to go for that big promotion. It's time for me to make this next big step or change departments or whatever that looks like for you. It's time for me to make this next big step. Do I know how it's going to look? No. Do I know that it's probably not going to go exactly how I think and that it's probably going to be mentally painful? Yes. I I talk about this quote all the time, and once again, I don't remember. I think it's Tony Robbins, but the quote that really changed how I thought about change is change happens when the pain of staying where you are in this comfort zone is bigger than the pain of change. That's when change happens. That's when you start taking action. If you sit there and say, yeah, I'm comfortable, but I would rather go through whatever it feels like to go to this next step. I'd rather go through that pain and whatever that feels like, because that means I'm growing. That means I'm expanding that comfort zone. That means I'm kicking a hole in that comfort zone and saying, peace out, whatever that looks like for you. But when I realized that that kind of squeezy, stressed feeling was there. And then I thought, well, that's what I've always associated with stress, but I'm not stressed. It's, oh, you're comfortable and you're ready for the next step. That is your body, your brain, everything saying it's time. It's time to trust in that gut, make that next move, and go for what you want. If it is not big enough to scare you, to make you excited, to make you honestly almost second guess what you're doing, I've always heard that. And they always say, if it doesn't do those things, it's not big enough, because it has to be big enough to scare you. Because if it's not, if you're not, you don't have that excitement and you keep that why, I talk about that another time, then it's not big enough to make the change. It's not big enough to say, whatever I'm doing, wherever this leads me, I'm going to figure it out, but I'm excited, I'm terrified, and use that fear and turn it into motivation, turn it into adrenaline to get that momentum, to get that drive that you need, to get that forward action to say, okay, what the heck is the first step that I need to do? And take that small first step. It doesn't have to be big, but when it's time for change, when you make that first step and you do that, celebrate it, because the more you can say, yes, I did it, and I can keep doing it, the more that rewires your brain to get past that fear, walk towards that fear and get past it. Because the more you can learn to do that and actually walk towards it, the more you'll get used to saying, okay, it's time for something else. It's time to go for that big promotion that, I don't know, like, I know I could do it. It's going to take a lot of stretching and growing. Absolutely. But moving up is. But it's going to be a great thing. And then when you start doing it, be excited. Keep going, knowing that the change is going to bring pain for parts of your department, for you, probably for others, but they will figure it out, because it doesn't do anybody any favors if you're sitting there thinking it's time for me to go, but I don't want to, because I don't want these people to be mad or disappointed or whatever the case may be, because that comes from the people pleaser in all of us, myself included. But I have learned to say, okay, I can't not do something because I don't want to make this person mad. People are going to maybe not be happy. It's gonna cause maybe a little bit of a ripple effect. Know that going forward and say, this is where I need to be. This is what I need to do. I and everybody else will figure it out. So when you feel that squeeze, that thing of I'm comfortable, but for some reason I like what I do, but I'm not happy where I am anymore, then it's time for you to evaluate why you're not happy and say, okay, is it time for change? Is it time for me to move on, move up, move around, whatever the case is, and have a conversation with a peer, a mentor, a boss, whatever that looks like, and say, this is where I want to go. Talk to me about what that looks like and figure out what I don't know. Because the more you can do that and it paints that picture and they can say, okay, well, this is what you could do, the change all of a sudden becomes very realistic. And you're like, okay, I can do that. I can make this happen. Now set realistic time frame for yourself, and you can do that logically, even if the change doesn't feel logical to you. Add an aspect of, here's what I can do to make it logical. Here's how I can be smart about this, and formulate the plan so that when you go to execute, you have the confidence to go forward and say, okay, I know what I'm going for. I see how to get there. Will that path change? Will it curve around a little bit more than I thought? Yeah, that's life. But that path will ultimately lead you to where you need to go, regardless of it's where you thought you would end up. That is what I have for everybody today. Hopefully that helped you shift your thinking about change and how you think about the fact that it's time for change, and maybe it's not just stressed, but go with that gut and take action on what you think needs to change. If you have that scared, fearful thing of, I don't think I can do this, that's your cue to walk right toward it and say, well, if I'm scared about this, but I'm excited, that means I'm headed in the right direction. That's exactly the parameters that I used. So go with that gut and then keep on going to get the change that you need.